I am the oldest of 3 kids, and growing up for me, that was never enough. I remember my brother was born when I was 6, and by the time I was 8, I was already asking my mom, please have another one. I want a big family. And she always told me, no, no, no. By the time I was 13 or 14, she said, the next baby that'll be in this house, or the next child, it's your job to bring this child, not mine. You can have it. And I was like, okay, I'm good with that. When I grow up, I'm going to have a lot of babies, probably 12. And I was really excited for this one day that I was going to have kids. But time passed, and no kids came from me or my mom, obviously. And I found ways to be with kids in other ways. When I was 20, I went to Romania, and I spent a year taking time off from college working in an orphanage. And here in this orphanage, I had these 25 desperately lonely, desperately sad kids who had wrecked lives. And most of them had come from the streets of Bucharest, from the train station where they'd been abandoned by their families, or where they had run away from bad situations at home. Out of 25 kids, only 2 were actually orphans. The rest had families somewhere, but families that they didn't want to be with. And the orphanage really, in many ways, wasn't much better. So I fell in love with these 25 little kids, and one girl in particular really touched my heart. She was 12 years old, and her name was Juana, and she would follow me everywhere I went. If I was outside working, they had a big garden for the orphanage, she would always want to work next to me, and at night she would come and sit in my room and we would talk. And she and I became very close. And as I was there over the course of the year, I saw these older girls who were so desperate for love at 14 or 15 running off with men, the first men that paid attention to them, and getting married and being miserable. And I told Juana when she was 12 years old, Juana, if you do not get married when you're 15, I will do whatever I can to bring you to America, and I'll put you through school there. Of course, this was a big promise to make as a 20-year-old, also in the middle of college myself, but I went back to the US and I finished my degree, and about this time Juana was almost 15 and she still hadn't run off with anyone. So she told me, do you remember that you told me you'll bring me to the US to study? And I said, yes, I do remember that. So I said, let me see what I can do, and I actually went back to Romania and I went with her. We went on this big train ride all through the countryside to go back to the place where she was born so we could get her a passport. And we got to her town, and she hadn't been there since she was 5 years old. So we were driving around, and she was telling me, I remember these places, I remember these places. And she took me to the neighborhood where she had grown up, to her own house. And we went inside, and we knocked on the door, and no one answered. But some neighbors came out, and she told them, you know, my name is Juana, this is my last name, and I grew up here. I was here 9 years ago. And they said, yes, we remember you when you were young. We remember when you and your brother left. Your dad kicked you out of your house when you were little kids, and we couldn't believe that he did that. But it happened, and we're so sorry, but we're glad you're fine. And we said, is there any way that we can find her parents? Because we need them to sign for the passport. And they said, well, you can probably find her dad on this corner, drunk, and you can probably find her mom at this bar. So we set out across the city to find this bar, and sure enough, we found the bar, and inside was her mom. And she signed the papers, no problem, get a passport, have a good life. And we said, where can we find Juana's dad? And they said, you know, out on this street corner. And sure enough, we went, and we found him sitting between boxes with a bottle of alcohol in a paper bag, very drunk, disheveled, all hairy. And Juana was so disgusted, and she was like, I don't even want to ask him. Why do I have to ask this guy who didn't want me, who kicked me out of my house at 5 years old, if I can have the future that I want for myself? But we went to him regardless, and he signed the paper, and I left Juana in Romania, and I went back to the States to do my part to bring her. And I started reading online about what needs to happen in order for a child or anyone to get a visa to the US. And they had a whole list of things. You have to prove strong ties to your home country. You have to maybe have a child of your own. Maybe you have to have a home, or you have to have a business, or you have to have some reason to prove that you're going to come back. And Juana didn't have any of those. On top of it, here I was, just graduated from college with no money, and how am I going to put her through school? In fact, I'm only 9 years older than her. And everyone that I talked to and I told my dream to bring Juana to the US said, it's impossible. You're never going to be able to make it happen. And I told them, at least once in their life, everyone has to dare to do the impossible. And so I started filling out paperwork, and I started calling people, and I started saying, like, I have this girl that grew up in an orphanage, and she needs to go to school, and I don't want to just send her to public school. She has all these traumas and all this background, and I want her to be able to go to a private school where she's nurtured and she's taken care of, but I can't do that on my own. And of course, I called my parents as well, and I said, Mom and Dad, I want to bring home someone from the orphanage that I really love a lot, and I need your help. Because legally in the US, only being 9 years older than someone, I don't have any right to bring them. So I need my parents to sign the papers, and I went through hoop after hoop after hoop. And within 3 months, I received a visa for Juana to come to America. And within that same 3 months, I had her entire tuition paid for the first year of private school, and I had people that promised to continue paying. Juana came to America in 2006, and it was a tough ride for all of us to go from living in an orphanage to being in school in the US, to having different expectations, different cultures, different food, different everything. And having the emotional baggage and the emotional trauma, it was a roller coaster for us, for my parents and I, dealing with her in these games of, do you love me, do you not love me, prove it to me. But after 4 years, Juana graduated from high school. And when she graduated from high school and she started college, she said to my mom and dad, you guys have been like family to me these last 4 years in the US. I've never seen someone do for me what you guys have done for me. My own family threw me on the street. My own family didn't want me. They knew where I was in the orphanage, and nobody came for me. Nobody wanted to see me, but you guys came for me, and I want to be part of your family. What can we do? Juana was 19 at this time, and of course she was much too old to adopt, but we said, we'll research it. So we researched, and we found out that in the US you can do adult adoption. And so when Juana was 21 years old, she was adopted as our fourth sister. I may not have had the next baby as my mom told me to do, but I definitely brought the next one.